lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place. Remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. In our home country, slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, in my view, what the President of the United States did today is not only despicable on its face, but what he did, and as a Christian to boot, but what he did was he just gave an excuse. He just gave an excuse to ISIS and every other Muslim terrorist in the world to keep on trucking, baby, because, hey, you know, we're not on any high horse here. We did it 800 years ago, so we understand what's going on. Is he crazy? Commentator on religion, as we join the Malzberg panel, commentator on religion, society, and pop culture, which doesn't leave out too much, by the way. Brad Hirschfield is here, and senior partner at Adam M. Thompson Law, syndicated TV host and commentator, and you know the rest, Adam M. Thompson. So let me start with you, Rabbi. At the National Prayer Breakfast, this devout Christian decides to trash Christianity as some kind of excuse for what's happening in today's modern world with Muslims. What was that?
I actually think Stevie did something really wise. Now, before you freak out, let me explain why. And this is really important. What he did was he took responsibility and he shifted strategically the burden to the Muslim world. He actually did something he's not done until now. He was willing to say, you know what? We have a dark past. We fought through it. We came out on the other side. Now, that's exactly what you people are going to have to do. And that is, by the way, Steve, that is what religion has done.
I got to bicker.
And millions of people died.
He started off by saying we shouldn't be on our high horse. In other words, we're not so great, so we have nothing to complain about. It's okay what they're doing. Not it's okay, but this is they're doing it now. We did it before.
I hear the emotion, but I'll tell you that the only way to deal with this stuff is for everyone to assume responsibility.
No, the only way to deal with
others,
it is to kill them and wipe them out. Adam, what about it?
Listen, you know, when you're dealing with this kind of situation, just focus on the situation. These were comments directed because we've seen a pilot get burned alive in a cage. Just speak on that and speak of that terrible, horrible act and the violence behind it. It's mixing apples and oranges. Sure, has there been religious, historical events that taint in every religion in some way, shape, or form? Sure, but this isn't about that. We're talking about something completely different, and him to give such a reference, or as you said, Steve, and I think correctly, an excuse is way off point. It was untimely, unnecessary, uncalled for, shouldn't have said it. Just say what has to be said, and that's that radical Islam extreme behavior has to be stopped, period. Just talk about that.
Rabbi?
Radical Islam does have to be stopped, and it's going to require both bullets and bombs, unfortunately, from us, and real cultural upheaval from within. What the president did today, and this was why it was important, for the first time he actually named, he looked into the camera and said, this is not just some amorphous issue, this is not terrorism in general, this is religion-based terror. Islam has a challenge, and it's going to require a very sophisticated application of two things: real brutal force and real awareness of how to foment cultural change from within. It's painful, but the truth is that is what has to happen in every culture. 1,500 years into the Christian story, there was a Reformation that killed a third of the population of Europe. Islam is probably going to have to fight through that exact same thing. And I think what the president did, as uncomfortable as it may have been to hear, was he opened the door and said, you can no longer say this isn't about Islam. It is about Islam. Maybe those terrorists are not all of Islam, but they are part of Islam, and you as a global community are going to have to take that on.
I'm with Pat Buchanan. There's no analogy to be made between Islam and Christianity in that regard, and saying that Jim Crow was about Jesus and in the name of Christ. I mean, my God, this is the President of the United States. You know, he's not some radical religious commentator. To stand there and again apologize to the world, this time for his religion, was sickening. What final word, Adam?
It wasn't the time to do it. If he wants to get into some discussion about historical references to all religions, violence in the past, look, there was the Crusade.
But that was
the
800 years ago.
Right. It wasn't the right time. If you want to educate the populace, do it another time. Not
and by
now.
the way, I don't think
Send a
there's too much in the
strong
I don't think there's too much in the New Testament that called for the kind of violence that was done, where many would say in the Quran it's there. We're coming back, part 2.
Made a mistake in recalling the events of 12 years ago. It did not take long to hear from some brave men and women in the air crews who were also in that desert. I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft.
In fact, I was in a car under the aircraft, but I was looking up and saw the RPG hit the. Welcome back, folks. The Malzberg panel continues with Brad Hirschfield and Adam Thompson. And let me start with you, Adam. Here's a guy who's been living a lie for 13 years, embellishing that lie as he's gone on. Did it on David Letterman, went into detail at Madison Square Garden last month at a Ranger game. The lie got perpetuated. They put it on the big screen. His whole career is based on trust. The American public has to look him in the eye, and they have to trust him. And he's been lying about this, and the military's ticked off. And does he survive?
I don't know. That's a good question.
That's why I'm here, Adam.
NBC has to answer a big question now, because as an anchor, it's credibility, integrity. And when people tune in, they want to look at that anchor and trust that what he's saying is true. Now, sometimes facts will come through an anchor in a story that could be off, but this is his story, his life, his personal account. Trust me, if you were in some type of aircraft and it was shot at and hit the ground, you know that happened or didn't happen. And for him to take a story that originated years ago, and the initial telling of the story was that he was in a different craft that wasn't hit, and it changed like a Hans Christian Andersen story each year and got a little better and better with more flavor and taste to get to the point that it is now. Without the military people speaking out and saying that it was false, he would have kept on telling this story.
Right.
So now people are going to say, what other stories has he embellished or exaggerated? Right. I think it's done. It's a credibility issue.
Right.
To me, ball game is over.
All right, Brad?
I think it is a credibility issue, and I think there's a real moral lesson for everyone here. He confused covering the story with being the story. And once that happens and you put yourself there and you start to confuse that, it's actually not surprising that the lie grew. It's entirely possible to me that he didn't start out that way, but that's the nefarious thing here. When you need to be at the center of the story, this happens to all of us at different points in our lives, and that's where the real issue for me is that his apology was really off.
Right, he says he made a mistake.
Right, he needed to be able to say, folks, here's what happened.
I lied.
I was seduced. It's not even being lied, 'cause I don't know what his intent was. I seduced myself. And the really dangerous thing, when you people trust me to share the news of the world with you, is the moment I think the story is about me, as opposed to my sharing the story.
But the story could have been
that's a
about
problem.
him if he was in the Chinook and it did get hit.
But he wasn't.
Right, because he lied.
Well, you don't get something like that wrong, period. It happened or it didn't happen.
Oh, no,
you
we
know
agree
that.
it didn't
it's
happen.
ridiculous.
There's no question it didn't happen. That's why it may be a career
Right,
ender.
that's why this is so
here's the
nonsensical.
Here's the deal. Look, Brian Williams, I was at his going away party when he was at Channel 2 in New York. I didn't know him at that point. Then when I was doing late nights at WABC, after he was at NBC, he would call in to the show from time to time from his car. So that's full disclosure. But the point is, the pomposity of the man, okay? He's a funny guy when he's on Letterman, but the pomposity. You ever see those ads? Every night, I have the responsibility of bringing all these complicated stories to you morons. That's how I interpreted that at the time. And I said, what is this? Well, who's he talking down to? And now this? How could he be? You know what's going to be telling? If the ratings tank, I bet tonight, the ratings are higher than ever, which is the sad part. I thank you, Brad. I thank you, Adam. And I thank all you for watching. Folks, tune in tonight 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. Eastern, to watch Chris Kyle, A Hero Speaks, a special one-hour program that tells the American sniper's story in his own words. It's right here on Newsmax Television. That's tonight, 8 and 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You're not going to want to miss this, I promise you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what's up next. You know it, you love it. It's called Gimme 5. It's on your way, or it's on its way if you keep it right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, only on Newsmax Television. It's next.